Meta Platforms enjoys a record-breaking stock run. Shares of Meta Platforms are on a 20-day winning streak, which may or may not end today. Eric Diton of the Wealth Alliance is here to discuss. Eric, it's the longest winning streak for Meta stock in the company's history, and I think it's the longest that we've seen for any S&P 500 company in decades. Why do you think Meta stock has been able to sustain such an upward climb?
Let's start with the fact that the Mag 7 have been leading the pack now for years, right? But all of a sudden, there's a bifurcation going on because there's a question. DeepSeek brought out a question. Do we need all this power? Do we need all these data centers? Do we need all these expensive chips? And you got Amazon and Google, they're pile of money, Microsoft, many billions of dollars going in there. What's the ROI? Is it going to be worth it or not? And you know what the answer is? We don't know. No one knows, but Mark Zuckerberg doesn't care because Meta's not doing that with AI. What Meta's doing is targeted advertising. And as they said, guys, we're already seeing huge results. So they're not making the huge risky capital investments. The investments they have made are already bearing fruit. Their last earnings, they knocked the cover off the ball. Zuckerberg's cozying up to Trump. They're becoming buddies after they were enemies. So Meta's just got all this momentum with a lot less risk right now than other Mag 7 stocks.
In other market trends, the Dow has outperformed the S&P 500 this year. Explain why that's unusual and which stocks are powering the Dow.
The Dow's been a laggard because the Dow just doesn't have the tech exposure that the S&P has. Roughly a third of the S&P is the Mag 7, and that's big tech. The Dow is more industrial. It's the Dow Jones Industrial Average. What's interesting is that year to date, the Mag 7 is underperforming, and we're seeing other parts of the market outperform, and that's good for the Dow. Specifically for the Dow, IBM is doing great, and you can call that big tech, but certainly not part of the Mag 7. But financials are crushing it because the Donald says, we're getting rid of that regulation. We don't want all that regulation. That's great for JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs. Now, remember something about the Dow. The Dow is not market cap weighted, it's price weighted. The higher the price of your stock, it's very antiquated, that's what it is. Higher the price of your stock, the more you move the index. While Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, IBM, these are all triple digit stock prices. They make a difference. Same for 3M, by the way, doing the same thing.
Also outperforming the S&P 500 this year, international stocks. Why is that, and where are investors piling in?
International, it's about time. If you believe in diversification, the one free lunch of investing is diversification. You're supposed to be able to get assets that don't do the same thing at the same time. The US is trouncing everyone now for a decade. Internationals really underperform, but guess what? It's really cheap. You can get a whole bunch of great international stocks for single digit PEs, same with emerging markets. So happy to say that I think given the risks suddenly associated with the Mag 7, people are looking elsewhere for investments, and they're finding plenty of attractive ones outside of the United States. I think there's also a relief rally that the Trump tariffs may not be as bad as everyone thought. I think that's part of it too.
So when you talk specifically about international stocks and emerging market stocks, where are you looking specifically? What regions, what countries? Are there specific stocks? Tell us.
So where's their value? I don't want anyone throwing anything at me right now, but I'm going to say China, because China has gotten dirt cheap. Do they have problems? Plenty of them. But as I believe it was John Templeton said, you buy when there's blood in the streets. And there's some blood in those streets. And there's real issues in China, and the stocks have just gotten annihilated. But guess what? China's not falling off the map. They are a power to be dealt with, still doing plenty of manufacturing, plenty of exporting, And again, we're going to see what happens with those Trump tariffs. There's sometimes a lot of talk, and at the end of the day, it's not nearly as bad. And so China looks attractive. You got to love India. India's been doing great, but they're a beneficiary of some moves out of China. You've got a very English-speaking country. You have the best demographics in the world. You've got a huge population in their 20s coming into employment. And historically, when you have countries with those demographics, their stock markets tend to do very well for a long